Nikon recently entered the full-frame mirrorless market, and today we're going to take out the Nikon Z7 for a proper spin. Let's go. So the Nikon Z7 is targeted more at the high-end kind of professional and landscaper type of person. Holding the camera, this is by far one of the most comfortable mirrorless cameras that are out there at the moment. It's got a nice deep grip and it's made out of a robust magnesium alloy construction that is fully weather sealed, which is absolutely fantastic. In terms of its actual ergonomics, if you use a Nikon camera, it'll be very familiar to you. So you've got your front wheel for your aperture, your back wheel for your shutter, the menus basically identical. You've got your ISO buttons, your record buttons, a mode dial that you'd be familiar with in their prosumer to entry-level range, and overall, the actual button layout and stuff on the Z7. For example, you've got your nice function buttons at the front, which I found to be easier to reach if you're using your third and fourth finger to touch. And at the back, you've got an autofocus joystick, so you can go diagonal, up, down, left, right, just like your autofocus points, which is really good. And in terms of its actual ports that you have on the Z7, so on the left-hand side, you have a headphone jack as well as a microphone port. You've got a USB-C port as well for faster transfer, as well as charging. And you've got a HDMI port and a remote port. On the right hand side, you've got one XQD card slot. No two SDs for this camera, just one good old XQD card. At the bottom of the camera, you've got a ENEL15B battery, which is similar to the ENEL15A, as you would see in their higher end full frame lineup and prosumer camera DSLR range. But the ENEL15B is the only battery that will allow you to charge in camera. So you can use the ENEL15A batteries, but you won't be able to charge via USB-C and only be able to charge if you use the brand new B batteries. At the back of the camera, you have a large 3-inch tilt touchscreen, which is extremely responsive, and best of all, a large 3.6 million dot EVF, which is nice and bright and has a pretty decent refresh rate to it as well. At the top of the Nikon Z7, you have a LCD screen that uses low energy for your settings, which is similar to what the Fuji cameras have on them now. And one of my favorite ergonomic features on the Z7 is the fact that it has a camera to video switch, which you can swiftly just switch between the two without having to fiddle around with your mode dial to go from photo to video. The viewfinder is actually amazing. And you know what I love most about this viewfinder? If you are an advocate of using glasses, you'll be glad that when you put your glasses against the viewfinder, your nose doesn't squeeze up against the screen. So good. But honestly, this viewfinder looks amazing. I think this is a really good electronic viewfinder. Fuji ones make good ones. We've had some pretty good experience with the Sony ones. And I would say this is one of the best ones we've used. It looks fantastic. 100 frames, boys, let's do this. Pretty decent tracking as well. So now just going to go over the key features of the Nikon Z7. So first off, it has a massive 45.7 megapixel beer size CMOS sensor combined with a XP6 image processor. Secondly, that allows you to have a ISO native range of 64 to 25,600 and continuous shooting speeds of up to 9 frames per second. In terms of video sides of things, it can do 4K up to 30 frames per second and Full HD up to 120 frames per second. When you output it via HDMI uncompressed, you can record it at 10-bit 422 color sampling with N-Log, but N-Log is only available when you externally record it and it's not available in camera. In terms of the autofocus system, it houses a 493 phase detection point system and houses a hybrid contrast and phase detection system when used in video. In terms of its wireless capabilities, it's got Snap Bridge, so you can send all your photos straight to your phone, and you can control your camera with your smart device as well. And lastly, one of the best features about the Z7, it has a 5-axis in-body image stabilization system when used with their Z mount lenses. When used with the FTZ mount adapter to use your F mount lenses, it employs a 3-axis image stabilization system and combines it with the F mount lenses image stabilization for you to get the best image stabilization possible. So let's talk about performance. We'll start off with the battery that houses in the Z7. So if you're already a Nikon user, you'll be happy to know that most of your EN EL15A batteries will definitely work in the Z7, but it won't last very long. We get about 300 shots, and yesterday, depending on really the lighting conditions and what the camera has to work with, I probably got around 280, 290. So the battery life isn't amazing. So if you have existing Nikon batteries, definitely keep those because you'll need them to use with the Z7 and or the Z6 later on. In terms of the autofocus performance, it is brilliant. It's really quick, and for once, because this is a mirrorless camera, unlike any other Nikon camera, your focus points can go from edge to edge. It's about, I think, 90% frame coverage. So you get heaps of focus points to work with, which also means that the tracking on this camera is fantastic. Facial detection, we were testing it with Josh earlier. It does tend to miss a bit, but overall, the facial detection does work quite well. And tracking cars and tracking fast moving subjects, considering that this is a 45.7 megapixel sensor, it works really well with the autofocus tracking, and I don't really have much to complain about on that front. What I really want to test is how well the autofocus will work with the FTZ mount adapter, which I'll test right now. Did someone say front heavy setup? Because I definitely can feel the lens and nothing on the camera at all. It's like I'm holding a lens and the camera's like an add-on. So the autofocus with the FTZ adapter. Although the criticism that went on online initially about the speed of the adapter, I'm not sure where they were getting that from, because honestly, me using it now, it works pretty damn well. Like, it's quick. I would say arguably it'd be just as fast as my Nikon D750 natively, which means that it's definitely more than usable. It's not that slow. I think it does tend to hunt a bit if you are going to be doing continuous autofocus, ever so slightly. Like, it's not that it's going to be so bad that it's unusable. So overall, it does work quite well. The only feedback I have with the adapter, the lenses tend to feel a bit more kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like when you're using the lens, you can feel the lens working a lot more, like the motors, than usual. And it does sound a bit louder than if you were to use your lens back onto your F-mounted DSLR. But overall, I don't have much to complain about the adapter. It works a lot better than I thought it would. So we just tried a continuous burst with the FTZ adapter, just jumping from right to left on the frame, and it did miss a couple shots. So we're gonna see how the burst and autofocus performs when we're using it with the 2470 f4 native lens. Pretty good from an adapter standpoint. So we just did the burst on the native 24-70, and honestly, it worked a lot better. The tracking was a lot cleaner, photos come out nice and sharp, as opposed to using it with the adapter, which missed maybe 2 or 3 frames. So when using it with the adapter, it's probably better to stick to single point shooting instead, or single frame shooting. Overall, Who would have knew that native lenses work better than adapters? Who would have knew? So the XQD card slot, I'm gonna quickly touch on this. So first off, the fact that it processed all our bursts before basically instantaneously. So if you think about it, it's processing 8 or 7 frames per second at 45.7 megapixels, and it is basically instantaneous when you review it and save it, and you don't get that performance in an SD card. Although yes, for some professionals who rely on dual SD card slots, whether it be for backup, rollover, or doing RAW and JPEGs, this is a bit of a bummer that you can't really do that, and I know a lot of professionals do rely on that, but honestly, the reliability of the construction of an XQD card and the speed that this processes at, it is phenomenal. I have never really appreciated XQD as much as using it in the Z7 today. Absolutely fantastic piece of memory. On top of that, what I really want to talk about is the video, because Nikon have never been known for video. Their video hasn't ever looked bad. Like, the video quality from Nikon and the colors and stuff are pretty decent, but the autofocus has never been amazing. And that's where the Z7 has come out really good. Like, this is a great step for Nikon in terms of video side of things. One, the Z7 has a versatile amount of video features and frame rates, versatility. You get nice uncompressed features in it, and the autofocus performance on it is more than adequate. It's got decent tracking, although yes, sometimes it does miss frame a bit in terms of tracking, but its low light usage, its ability to track fast moving subjects in autofocus, and it doesn't hunt too much. I feel if you are doing video with the FTZ mount and data on an F-mount lens, it's not going to be too good. Like, as you would have saw in the burst, it did tend to struggle a bit on a couple frames. So I would recommend, if you're going to be doing video on the Z7, either manual focus using the FTZ mount adapter, or if you want to do autofocus, definitely stick with using their native Z mount lenses. So today's sample images were shot on a Nikon Z7 combined with the 24-70mm Z mount lens and the 24-70mm f2.8 F mount lens. The images look fantastic on the Z7. Like you would expect from a Nikon camera, the RAWs are super detailed, have plenty of dynamic range to work with in post, and the JPEGs are filled with vibrant color, and they don't look too bad in terms of contrast. In terms of video, the 4K and Full HD video looks pretty good from the camera. Slow motion looks nice and super smooth, and it handles rolling shutter quite well at 1080 25 frames per second, and handles aliasing quite well as well at higher frame rates. Overall, the image quality is fantastic on the Z7, and the video quality isn't too bad either. This is a really good first attempt from Nikon, and it's honestly one of the best full frame mirrorless cameras out there right now. So my final thoughts on the Nikon Z7. Despite its low-ish battery life, its slow-ish focus at times using the adapter, and the fact that it only has one XQD card slot, all these issues are really quite minor in comparison to the benefits that you get out of the Z7. In terms of the card slot, yes, although it is only one and it is XQD, the processing speeds and bursts and just overall usage of the camera with the card slot and its processor is absolutely fantastic. On top of that as well, the actual images that come out of this camera and the video quality is beyond what I would have expected from Nikon to release, honestly, for their first ever full frame mirrorless camera. Overall, it's a joy to use for Nikon users who are already familiar with their Nikon DSLR system. Going to one of these is super easy, and the transition is not hard at all. Although I do wish Nikon released a bigger lineup of S-line lenses from launch, as the 3 lenses they've put out all are kind of within the same kind of focal range, and there's not really much to them. However, they have announced their roadmap, and there are plenty more lenses to come next year, which we're super excited about. Stay tuned for our Nikon Z6 review, which will come later in the year when it releases. If you have any questions on the Z7, pop them in the comments below, and make sure to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and our blog, which links to those are in our description below to stay up to date with what's going on in store and our future events. Like always, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our latest updates as we upload videos every Tuesday and Thursday.